Imagine having the power to grow your wealth exponentially, a secret known to only a select few. Welcome to the world of high-yield investing, where the right strategies can make all the difference. But what if you could 10x your returns? The answer lies in understanding the business models of the most successful investors. The world of high-yield investing is dominated by a few key players, each with their own unique strategy. Take Warren Buffett, for example, who has consistently outperformed the market with his value investing approach. By focusing on undervalued companies with strong fundamentals, Buffett has generated an average annual return of 20% over the past decade, compared to the S&P 500's 10%. But how does he do it? The answer lies in his ability to identify companies with a strong competitive advantage, such as Coca-Cola and American Express. These companies have a proven track record of generating consistent profits, making them a safer bet for investors. In fact, a study by Morningstar found that companies with a strong competitive advantage tend to outperform the market by an average of 5% per year. So, what can we learn from Buffett's approach? For starters, it's essential to have a long-term perspective, rather than trying to time the market or make quick profits. By focusing on the fundamentals and doing your research, you can increase your chances of success. In fact, a study by Fidelity found that investors who held onto their stocks for at least 10 years tended to outperform those who sold within a year by an average of 10%. So, how can you apply this knowledge to your own investing strategy? One approach is to use a dollar-cost averaging method, where you invest a fixed amount of money at regular intervals, regardless of the market's performance. This can help reduce your risk and increase your potential returns over the long term. While high-yield investing can be a lucrative strategy, it's not without its risks. In fact, many investors have lost millions by following get-rich-quick schemes or investing in unproven companies. Take the case of Bernie Madoff, for example, who ran a Ponzi scheme that cost investors an estimated $65 billion. So, how can you avoid falling victim to these types of scams? For starters, it's essential to do your research and thoroughly vet any investment opportunity. Look for red flags such as unusually high returns, pressure to invest quickly, or a lack of transparency. In fact, a study by the SEC found that 80% of investment scams involve unregistered securities. So, what are some warning signs to watch out for? One major red flag is a promise of guaranteed returns, as this is often a sign of a Ponzi scheme. Another warning sign is a lack of transparency, such as a company that refuses to provide financial statements or other information. By being aware of these risks and taking steps to protect yourself, you can reduce your chances of falling victim to an investment scam. In fact, a study by the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority found that investors who are aware of the risks and take steps to educate themselves are less likely to fall victim to investment scams. One of the key principles of high-yield investing is diversification. By spreading your investments across different asset classes and sectors, you can reduce your risk and increase your potential returns. Take the example of a portfolio that is invested 60% in stocks, 30% in bonds, and 10% in real estate. This type of diversification can help reduce your risk by up to 20%, according to a study by Vanguard. But how can you achieve this level of diversification? One approach is to use index funds or ETFs, which can provide broad exposure to different markets and sectors. In fact, a study by Morningstar found that index funds have outperformed actively managed funds by an average of 2% per year over the past decade. So, what are some other ways to diversify your portfolio? One approach is to invest in alternative assets, such as real estate or commodities. Another approach is to use tax-advantaged accounts, such as a 401k or IRA, to reduce your tax liability. By taking a diversified approach to investing, you can increase your chances of success and reduce your risk. While investing is often seen as a numbers game, emotional intelligence plays a critical role in achieving success. In fact, a study by the Harvard Business Review found that investors with high emotional intelligence tend to outperform those with low emotional intelligence by an average of 10%. So, what are some key traits of emotionally intelligent investors? For starters, they tend to be more disciplined and patient, avoiding the temptation to make impulsive decisions based on emotions. They also tend to be more aware of their own biases and limitations, taking steps to mitigate their impact. In fact, a study by the Journal of Behavioral Finance found that investors who are aware of their own biases tend to make better decisions by up to 20%. So, how can you develop emotional intelligence as an investor? One approach is to practice mindfulness and self-reflection, taking the time to consider your own thoughts and feelings. Another approach is to seek out diverse perspectives and opinions, challenging your own assumptions and biases. By developing emotional intelligence, you can become a more effective and successful investor. As the investing landscape continues to evolve, it's essential to stay ahead of the curve. One major trend is the rise of fintech and digital investing, which is making it easier and more accessible for individuals to invest. In fact, a study by Deloitte found that 70% of investors are now using digital platforms to manage their investments.